If you guys haven't seen it already, there is a new clip of Biden going around where he does sort of the ultimate gaffe. Take a look at it and then let's talk.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. We're going to beat President Putin.
The first thing I want to start with is this is heartbreaking. And I don't want that to get lost in all the political punditry that we're going to be seeing in the next few days. But what strikes me is there is a minimum age if you want to become president, but there's not a maximum age. If you look at why there is a minimum age, it's because we understand that you need to be cognitively developed and you need to then have enough information and contact with the world that you've developed some actual wisdom. The heartbreaking part, and nobody wants this to be less true than anybody that's aged, I will just tell you, if you start declining, which is not everyone is going to decline at the same age, but if you start declining, you are literally leaking your wisdom. You're not able to hold the same connections. The brain is fighting to do the things that it has done historically. And the way that the brain works, it can compensate for a very long time. But if you actually look at the structures of the brain, they are deteriorating. And so when somebody starts going down that path, it is a one-way street. And so he's not like gonna U-turn and suddenly be going in the right direction.
There's no miracle cure coming.
Unfortunately, if we understand that what we care about is somebody having their cognitive faculties together and access to the wisdom that they have earned through their life, then at this point, having somebody in such an important position that has just obviously cognitive decline, you really have to start asking what the purpose of that job is. And I think people are losing sight of what the president is meant to do. The president really doesn't have a lot of impact on a lot of things. We have gridlock for a reason. The American system is designed to stop somebody from becoming a tyrant. But when you understand that it's the immediate decisions that have to be made, and the most terrifying is when you think about something like the Cuban Missile Crisis, where this was real time. This is ultimately the president's decision. This is millions of lives hanging in the balance. We just had Annie Jacobson on the show talking about now with the level of destruction that nuclear war can bring.
The automatic responses,
right?
How things happen, all of it.
They have like 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So if you have somebody in this condition that can't make decisions and you only have 7 minutes to make them, now it's not going to be him making that decision. And putting ourselves in the position where we acknowledge that a deep state exists, that's one thing. Like, I get it. Call it the managerial class, whatever. There is connective tissue in the government. I don't like it, and I have a whole bunch of hot takes on that. But you don't want to knowingly elect the deep state as a blob. Like that to me is nonsensical.
Yeah, it's way different if this is year 3 and he's about to end his term and okay, we get it. We can kind of ride it out. But to start a whole nother 4 years is crazy. I think the one thing that jumped out to me is that Clinton and Bush are both younger than Joe Biden. And I just thought that like blew my mind that these guys were presidents in the 90s, early 2000s, and yet they're still 5, 6, 7 years younger than the person that we're saying has 4 more years to do this.
Give us a candidate where we can't lose, where, and that's to both sides. For the love of God, we want to be in a position where we have a candidate where if that person gets elected, we can't lose in either side. And I get it. We are extraordinarily divided right now. And so people feel like everything is an existential threat. What I want people to really look at is the thing that we should be striving towards is putting up candidates that they are honorable, that they are pro-American, that they have their complete faculties, which I cannot believe that I actually have to say, but that we hold ourselves to that standard where we are putting forth somebody that we really believe is the best of the best. And I think right now, the Democrats are just playing defense. This is just a game of, I think Trump is the worst thing ever, the devil incarnate. I don't want a defensive play. And this is the thing that I find interesting about RFK. And I am not an RFK stan, but what I like is that he at least has a message that is moved towards. So I've thought a lot about in hiring that there are two kinds of people. There are people that move towards things and there are people that move away from things. And hey, look, the human animal is divided on that spectrum. Some people are fear-based and that's how they view the world is I need to get away from this threat. There are other people that are extremely optimistic and they move towards the future that they want. Right now, if you're playing a purely defensive strategy and your goal is to just get away from Trump, I think that is just a terrible message to put forward to the people. Mm-hmm. And then there's a potentially even more cynical thing that's happening right now, which is that they're just holding their breath. And they're saying, look, we know that Trump is going to get elected. We know that we're going to lose by running Biden. But that's fine. Just hold our nose. And for a reason I don't yet understand, they would rather do that than field a new candidate. Now, because so much of what I'll call the coordinated media, so much of the coordinated media is turning against Biden right now, that you're now in a situation where I don't know if they can make it through the Democratic National Convention with Biden on the ticket. I don't see it. Like, you don't have any allies. And so now what you have is you're just banking that Biden won't fold to the pressure and he will just hold on to the delegates and they'll be forced to do it. But what I'm hoping happens is that people can convince him that you've lost the will of the people and let a real debate happen at the convention.
100%. And I think after George Clooney said something, a lot of the big donors stepped up, some Senate, some like reps from the House. People are now having this conversation. So why do you think it's so hard for him to step down?
I mean, the really brutal answer is, I think as you begin to cognitively decline, you are doing what you are trained to do. So do you watch UFC at all?
Yeah.
All right. So I talk about this all the time and I never get the reaction from people that I'm looking for. If you watch UFC, you've seen a fighter get dazed. And when they're dazed, a fighter will grab legs. They just know, grab their legs, get close to them, move in tight because it's harder to hit and do more damage if you're holding onto the person's legs. That buys them time to get their wits about them. But that's what they do when they're dazed. And I'm saying, as anybody is in the grips of cognitive decline, you are reverting to the things that you know that you've done over and over and over. He's grabbing legs. And so all he knows is to be a political animal. And so he's saying things like, you want to run for president, declare and challenge me at the DNC, at the convention. Bro, you will get slaughtered. You will get in a real debate. I mean, just manhandled. And the thing that people are talking about regarding Trump and the debate, and I think this is really smart to pay attention to, Trump just shut up. He just was quiet. And there's a phrase, never interrupt your enemy while they're destroying themselves. And man, again, this is a terrible position. I don't want someone who just stands there silently while Biden dismantles his own reputation. Mm-hmm. I want somebody who has a vision for where we're going. And give me someone other than RFK to look at. But for the love of God, like, put somebody in that position that has a positive vision for the future, that can explain to me how we're going to make life better for our kids. I don't even have kids. And I'm still obsessed with, dude, everything comes down to people start acting the right way when they believe that they are making the world better for their children. Just is true. I don't have to have kids to think that way. I just know that it's the circle of life, everybody. Mm-hmm. And you want to make sure that you are leaving things better than you found them, that you're thinking in long term, that you're thinking about the future, that you're looking at the people coming up after you. And you're saying to yourself, since I don't have kids, this is my mantra, leaders make leaders. Like, you are trying to empower the next generation. I've said this to people here at Impact Theory before. The great irony of my trajectory to CEO, because I started as a copywriter several companies ago, obviously not here at Impact Theory, but I started as a copywriter. I clawed my way to CEO. And when I got there, the first thing I did was start empowering other people. And so we need leadership like that. We need people at the top that are like, hey, I am a steward of a nation of people. This is not a game. This is not about holding onto power, grabbing legs. Being a political leader is asking the most brutal thing that you can ask of somebody, which is to give your health over to the nation. Being the president effectively strips people of God knows how many years of their life because it is so demanding. And you are going to give that, not because you are power hungry, but because you believe that you can do something incredible for the people of the nation that you're trying to serve. Like that is the ethos that I want to see re-imbued in the American spirit.
There should be some young dude from Delaware who's Joe Biden Jr., somebody he can like groom up or do something like that. And it just sucks that he just wants it to be him.
And it's not only that, yes, but again, if I'm right, and that this is really grabbing legs, this is just simply the thing that you know. But yes, of course, even politicians with all of their faculties do that. But this really comes down to the political system, the machinery that is this thing that has just gotten bigger and bigger over time. And I don't know what the answer to this is. I don't know if there is a way to unwind it until there is so much pain that you're in an Argentinian type position where it's like you went from being one of the richest countries in South America to being one of the most impoverished. And because living people remember when it was good, because it was only like 30 years ago, that you're like, all right, we're going to vote a guy in that comes in literally with he's actually holding a chainsaw during his campaign and telling people, look, I'm just going to slash. I don't know if we can make things smaller without that kind of pain and suffering. But if we can get people to lay their value system out and say, okay, what ought a leader be? What do we want in our leader? And then you start looking at whether we have built the machinery around that is going to give rise to that. And I would say that the output of any system tells you what the system is designed to do. And the output of the system now is career politicians that are being influenced by money, even if they start out wanting to do good. It's just the way that the system is set up. You have to convince the donors to give you money. They're going to want some tit for tat. And so just to win, of course, you're telling yourself, but I'm going to do good, but I have to win first. And so sure, I might do a favor for this person. And then all of a sudden we realize that we know what our value system is. We know what leaders we want, but our system isn't giving us that. And then, and I think only then, are we going to be able to assess the nature of the system to make changes to the system so that the system will then begin outputting the leaders that we want. But I think so much of this is people are just in an emotional loop. They're not following logic. They're following emotion.
So this is not a product of one old man who's losing his faculty. It's a product of a system that has kind of led us to this position.
The fact that an old man who's losing his faculties is being propped up tells you about the nature of the system. So if this is what the system is outputting, then you have a system that outputs a sick final product. And again, you can look at this on both sides. So other people will look at Trump and go, like, this is crazy. It's giving us a demagogue. So we have this option of, we have a demagogue. I'm giving you what other people think. We have a demagogue over here who is Hitlerian in nature. And then over here, we have a senile old man that is clearly not the one pulling the strings. It's other people. And dude, literally up until the debate, everyone was like, what are you talking about? He's fine. No, he's the same guy, bro, that he's always been. And then on a dime, everybody in real time was like, for either it was building and that was finally the straw that broke the camel's back, or it really was hyper coordinated. And it was like, all right, everybody, if he does well, then cool, we're good. If he does poorly, then here are the talking points and we're going to do it. And you need only listen to the people that were on certainly mainstream media saying like, I was on my phone the whole time talking to other people about what was going on and what are we going to do. And again, you don't have to assume nefarious intent for people to act in a coordinated manner. You just need there to be aligned incentives. And dude, there's an interesting thing that's happening in culture right now. I don't remember who said, I need to look this up because I keep quoting it, that politics is downstream of culture. Politics is downstream of culture. Politics is downstream of culture. This is a culture question. This is why I am so fascinated by what's happening with Candace Owens right now. I think that there is a shift happening in culture that is, it's going to get extraordinarily weird because we have cameras in our pockets. We are seeing the sleight of hand. And when you could collude, because there were only 4 newspapers, 3 networks, then you could put out a message. And dude, ironically, maybe that was rad. Maybe it was rad that you could control the narrative. And as long as the narrative was hopeful and positive, then even though it was controlled, the 80s were rad, dude. The 80s were rad. And I loved it. The 90s were rad. You could start to feel some of the fractures. But now that everyone is a publisher, it's amazing. It's amazing. But you're getting this breakdown of what is the narrative. And we have officially entered the age of conspiracy. And so I am not a conspiracy guy. So I'm not somebody who seeks out conspiracies or finds them particularly interesting. What I'm saying is the way the human mind is wired, we can all look at the same thing and see something different. The fact that the human mind is wired in a way that your frame of reference determines not what you look at, but it determines what you see. Now, all of a sudden you realize, whoa, everybody can be filming it, but we're all seeing different things. There's narratives flying everywhere.
Different frame of references, different things. So we're interpreting the information differently.
Correct. But the most troubling thing is because we all have a camera in our pocket, we're actually seeing the sleight of hand. We're seeing people try to control the narrative. So now we're like, whoa. You guys have been doing this the whole time. And so now I don't trust any of you. And so now I'm going to pick somebody that I believe, and I need a heuristic. This is another thing people have to understand. The way the human mind works, you need shortcuts. You cannot go research all of this stuff yourself. You need a shortcut. And so you turn to somebody like Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, George Clooney, whoever, and you say, hey, I trust you. I've known you socially, meaning online, for however long. You haven't led me astray. Cool. I'm just going to line up behind your belief system. And now it becomes people aren't following the ideas based on, does this idea make your life better or not? They're following the influencer because they need a shortcut. And now, oh my God, because the influencer can just point and be like, look at what they've lied about. They're lying to you about everything. And once I pull that one thread, everything falls apart, and you get a whole host of people that say, just listen to what I say. I got you.
And that's why we think space isn't real and the earth is flat and all types of other fun things. All right. If Joe Biden was sitting right next to you, Joe, we would love to get you on the show. Come on. You could get 3 hours. You got all your faculties. What would you say to him? Do
I want to sit down with Biden? I don't know if that's kind at this point.
That's an interesting response.
That's the honest answer.
Say more.
I'm trying to be honest. If Joe were knocking on the door right now and was like, bro, I want to sit down, I probably would do it, but I'm super conflicted. I really want to see him exit gracefully. I don't know enough about Joe Biden to know if he's nefarious. It's entirely possible that he is. It's entirely possible that if I dug into his life, that I would just find a litany of horrible things. But it's also possible that he's really done his best within a sick system. Corrupt, sure, it was a word that first came to mind. Within a system that could be dramatically improved, and that system has shaped him into a political animal, as it has virtually everyone that it's ever touched, but that he really means well. And putting that hat on, I want him to have an exit ramp that is graceful and allows him to hold his head high. I don't need him to be battered. It is sad to watch his legacy. He'll be remembered for this and only this. No one is going to remember the however many years leading up to this moment. It will just be, you were the president that got dementia in office.
So unfortunate. Man, we're rooting for you, Joe.
I'm not. I'm rooting for the country. That's the honest answer.
Just to your point, it sucks for him to go down like this. Like, he's going down bad.
I don't want to see anybody go down like this, but ultimately, we all need to think of the country. And I'm not pulling for Joe Biden. I'm not pulling for RFK. I'm not pulling for Trump. I am pulling for America. And I would expect every country to pull for themselves and to look, my obsession is predictive validity. If I believe this thing and act in accordance with it, will it make my life better? And to find that out, you have to run what I call the physics of progress, which is the scientific method recontextualized in my world for business. But they have to be doing the same thing in the political sphere. And right now, because everything is about scoring political points, you can't own when you're wrong. If it's your quote unquote team, you can't say, hey, that doesn't make any sense. We should not be doing that because the KPI that we believed that policy would impact was this. We believed it would raise it up 30 points, whatever, and it raised it up 4 points. So we need to find a new policy that will actually have the outcome that we want to get. And people don't do that. That is both the human animal and the political apparatus. And that is what freaks me out because politics is downstream of culture. Now, the question is, culture is downstream of biology. Now, is our biology such that this is a trap that we will never be able to get out of? Because we are tribal creatures. We are on a spectrum of left to right in the way that our brains work. So
is there historical context of something happen like this? You're the history buff. I know.
Historical context for
like
a president losing their faculties?
Not losing their faculties. I'm not saying Caesar was stuttering at like the speeches or anything, but can you think of another moment in time where from a national level, you've seen the leadership look
well,
this
there was
shaky?
a moment where, oh, for sure. I mean, look, all empires ultimately collapse, every single one of them. There are so many times throughout history where you have a wildly corrupt leader, whether they are corrupted by mental illness, whether they're corrupted by just the power, whether they're corrupted. I mean, if we're going to call what Biden is going through as corruption, but certainly his ability to think clearly and hold a lot of variables in his head is corrupted in the way that a hard drive becomes corrupted. So yes, there is tremendous precedent for this, and it almost always ends badly. Stalin, who was just an unbelievably evil human being, had a stroke. And at one point they had to decide, what the hell are we going to do?
Jeez.
Do we tell people? They were even afraid to knock on his door and go in when he had collapsed because he was such a sociopath. So sure, there are plenty of times where there is suddenly a vacuum in leadership. There's no succession plan. I mean, we at least have a succession plan. And it ultimately is going to reveal whether you have a healthy system or not. Now, the one thing I will say is our founding documents are awesome. And if we adhere to our founding documents, then we'll be fine. We'll get to the other side of this. Now, from an international, will somebody take a swing at us? Probably not, is my honest answer. And the reason, in a moment of vulnerability like this, you are for sure at your weakest. If somebody were going to make a play, they would make it now. But the reality is the only person I think we really have to worry about is China. And China has economic problems right now. But look, if they make a move on Taiwan, replay me saying that they're not going to. But that would be the only thing that I would worry about, because the reason I don't think it's a big concern is that we do have a machine, the big political machine, for all of its problems and issues. It stops any one person in that machine from being too important. So because of I don't think Putin is sitting there with his finger over the nuclear button, which would be the most terrifying thing. So I think we will be fine and that we will get to the end of this. We will elect a new president. I just really want there to be a worthy candidate.
All right. The lightning round, favorite part of the show. Okay. Couple questions.
Yep.
Answer as fast as you can.
Got it.
Are you ready? Is this event more funny or more scary?
Scary.
Are they going to hot swap Joe Biden?
Yes.
Does this make us look bad at an international level?
Beyond belief.
Ooh, I was expecting beyond belief. Can you name a replacement for Joe?
Well, now are you asking me who I want to replace Joe or who I think they will replace
The
Joe
DNC,
with?
who do you think is next in line?
Probably Newsom. I don't know how serious Michelle Obama is about not wanting to run, but that's, man, if I were like, yo, you have to win, that seems like a pretty good choice.
Does Michelle
If you can get her to run. People want her to run.
Yeah.
She is certainly, I think that the coordinated media, let's call it, on the left
Mm-hmm.
would rally behind her in a way that would be dazzling to behold.
Do you think she beats Trump?
Yes.
Ooh. And last one, are we going to be okay in December 2024 when all this is like said and done?
Yes. 100%. We are resilient. The nation is resilient. It is rare that things are as bad as you fear they're going to be. It's also rare that things are as good as you hope they will be. But I think that we have been through way worse stuff. We got through the Cuban Missile Crisis without nukes being launched. We got through a civil war. Dude, read about the late 60s. Almost certainly the CIA was killing our own president, and we got through that. Like, bro, we've gotten through some crazy shit, and we will get through this for sure.
Cool. Let's sign it off.
There it is. All right, everybody. Best of luck. We'll see you on the flip side. Until then, be legendary. Peace.